Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, "We take care of our own," as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 129 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we highlight a program that takes a step forward each and every year, the New England Wolves. Tim Kunes joins the podcast to look back at what his EHL team accomplished this past season, including the playoff run that took them all the way to semifinal Saturday in Providence. Further along, the E-Crew teams up for another top 10 selection, fueled by some great stories from the past. I'm joined now by Tim Kunes, the head coach of the New England Wolves. How's it going, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back on the podcast, and let's jump right into things. I'll start with the same question that I've asked every coach so far this offseason. When you look back on the 2021-22 season this past year, what are the first thoughts that come to mind for you?
Yeah, it was a really successful season for our team, for our EHL team. Going to Providence to the Frozen Finals was the best result we've had on the ice. So it was a fun season to coach and be a part of. We're definitely very excited to get back going here.
When the year starts the way that it did, which I'm sure you can't deny the slow start, did you always still envision Providence in your mind?
Yeah, I don't think or myself, I don't think I looked that far ahead. We just try to improve each day and try to get better with the group that we have. We did that. We try to do that every year. And that's one of the main focuses, is to make the players better individually, and the team gets better as well. Obviously paid off in the end.
And that's kind of a good point to bring up, because whenever people ask me what teams get better as the season progresses, I always say the Wolves and the Wizards. Feels like every year they're the two teams that just gradually get better and better and better. What do you credit that to the most?
I think it's our setup that we have here and our focus on player development. These guys practice twice a day. We have a skills practice every day, and we keep that throughout the season. Is there something different we could do in the first 2-3 weeks of the season to have better results? Maybe, but we're focused on the big picture, and that's to make each player better who's in our program. So when we do that, the team, as a byproduct, gets better. That's kind of how we work it here.
And I think the month of February this past year just epitomizes that, because of the run that you guys went on to get the seed that you got in the playoffs, ultimately helped lead you to the Frozen Finals. But the perfect example of a player just getting better as the year progresses is Liam Kilgallon. Did you realize how good he could be? Did he realize how good he could be? Because what he did in February was out of this world.
Yeah, I can't answer if he knew that, but obviously we liked Liam. Our goalie coach, Lou Luttrell, was a big fan of Liam, and Liam made a lot of improvements over the summer when he returned to our team from the previous year. A lot of that was mentally, and he was another one who he wasn't in the net that much in the beginning of the season, but he also got better during the year. And a big part of our success down the stretch there was how well he played,
especially in that wild card game, which I want to talk about, because we don't have the wild card games this year. We had them this past year. It just happened to be the way that it was. But both of them went to overtime. Obviously, yours being the low scoring game that it was, and having the experience that you've had, your playing days, as that game is progressing, and it feels like, in that third period, it's going to be one more goal max. What messages are you delivering to your team on the bench?
I think as a coach, a big part of it is we just try to keep the guys even and not too high or too low throughout the game, right? So like have to be confident in the group and try to keep everyone just focused on the next shift, staying even keeled and um, just keep working for the goal, and we got it right. So that was great.
Do you remember the bounce that took place shortly before the goal back in your own end off the Zamboni doors? Did your heart skip a beat a little bit?
Yeah, I mean we've seen that down at that rink a few times during the past couple of years. So it was a crazy couple moments there, and I think we had a breakaway which we
Yep.
missed, um, and then that ended up turning right into a goal. So it was some tense moments.
It all leads to the finals where, again, it just happens to be the way things line up that you get to face the Avalanche again. I asked this question to Chris a few weeks ago. When it comes to our league, I think that any game you could say is a toss up. Truly, this past season was the perfect example of that. When it comes to the Avalanche and the Wolves, when you guys get together, it feels like anything can happen. Why is that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of familiarity between the two teams, especially from a few seasons ago with the COVID, where we played them. I don't know, 13, 14 times in the season. They're in our division, so there's been a lot of good matchups between us, and like you said, every team in this league is really is a strong program, and any given game can go either way. So and especially I think our division has been a really strong division the past couple of years with Vermont and Seacoast and obviously Avalanche. So um, every game is exciting in this league, and you have to be ready to play.
So when Cavandle puts in the overtime winner, your first ever EHL game in Providence, where did that moment immediately rank for you as a coach?
Yeah, it was great. It's right at the top. It was at the time you're just kind of thinking about overtime and 3-on-3, and then to realize that okay, we're moving on to the semifinals with that goal in overtime was I was happy for the guys because as we talked about before, it was a long season, and the guys really worked hard. Guys like Julius and Declan House and Liam Kilgallon who stuck with it all year, to be rewarded by moving on there was great.
And it again, how it just played out this year. You end up playing that next day against the Express, already knowing that you were in the semifinals, right? The same thing with the 87s and Railers. So every team kind of shuffled things around. You throw in Trevor Jewell, who can return for you. He goes and gets a shutout. How valuable do you think that one game, that one experience will be for him moving forward?
Yeah, I hope it's very valuable. Trevor's coming back next year, so we're excited to have him, and it's a great experience, like you said, to get to play there at Providence College and to have some really good results. Should be great going forward.
How often did you get to play there when you were a player at BC?
Yeah, I mean we've played there, I guess, a couple times every year. Um, so it's not an easy building to play in. Sometimes the seems a little small out there. Things happen quickly. Um, like you saw there at that overtime game, it's at one end, and then all of a sudden we're going back down on a 2-on-1 the other way. So you have to. It's a good experience for the players to play there, right?
Yeah.
I know to play in at Providence College, a Division 1 program in that building is something that they all really appreciated and enjoyed.
Yeah. So you win those two games, and ultimately you fell to the 87s on semifinal Saturday. I know we spoke right afterwards, and it was tough pill to swallow. But how long after that game ended were you able to take a step back and look at the season and really just look at everything that your team accomplished to get to that point?
Yeah, it's tough to lose. No one wants to lose to end the season on a loss, but most of the teams do it, right? Only one team wins.
Yeah.
Looking back at the game, it's the best of one. New Jersey played better than us on that, you know, in that game. So they scored a couple goals on the power play. We had some chances, and we didn't, so that's hockey, that's life. It was still a great year for our group. Just the strides they made, and to reach that point, and for the returners coming back, it's that experience will only help them, both for this season and, even the guys going to college to play in those meaningful games. That makes you a better player.
And I hear a lot about the exit interviews with those players that go through what your team went through. And for the ones that can return, it just motivates them to want to come back that much sooner, right? Did you feel like you had those same conversations with the guys that were able to come back for you this year?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't think you reach that point without having a lot of character players on your team, so, and that same group of guys who can return, those are some of the guys who helped us reach that point and who are really motivated to come back next year and accomplish our goals next year. So guys like Eddie's, Grigoriev's, AJ Lakis, these guys are top players and really excited to be back. Brennan Walker, Jack Bortle, character guys who I'm looking forward to having on the ice this season.
Are they texting you, counting down until training camp starts?
Yeah, we talk throughout the summer, and part of it is coach just checking in on them, make sure that they're working hard. But really, that group of guys, they're, like you said, self-motivated and looking forward to getting going here.
Because they know they have a tough training camp coming up. For all of our teams, they put together their guys through all kinds of tests when the season starts. But for you guys, you have a very unique training camp that includes some military-based training, if I remember correctly. So can you kind of talk about what you guys do exactly that helps get the players prepared?
Yeah, so that's just one day. We have some guys come in from Army Reserve who run those guys through a workout, and a lot of it has to do with leadership and working together as a group. Less about the physical aspect. We're certainly, besides that, we're working really hard. Preseason is to get ready for the regular season. So we're trying to cram a lot of stuff in the 3 weeks and get ready for September 17th when we play Seacoast.
Yep. And before I bring Anthony and Jeff on to put together the Wolves top 10, which I think we'll have a fun time doing, there's the obvious names that we'll talk about with the Marcinkiewicz brothers, the Feldman, Swanky players over the years, Declan House. Now, are there players that you think, maybe one or two, that went underrated over the years but were invaluable to yourself as a coach and the Wolves as a franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about it, a guy like, we're here, Jack Ennis has been on the team for the last 3 years, so it's going to be weird to be on a team and not have Jack showing up. But, guys like that, Kevin Bite, Jack Ennis, those guys played, 3 seasons on the team and really improved, are the epitome of a player who improved in our program. And character guys, Jack might not show up on the score sheet, but, was a really key player for us last season, and a guy who cared about the team and cared about the program and his teammates who's going on to college hockey, so guys like that are the glue of the team. You can't win games without guys like that.
We'll make sure to talk about them as well. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I know it's beautiful up there this time of year, so I hope you get the chance to enjoy a little bit of the rest of the off season.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You too, Neil. Look forward to seeing you in the rinks this year.
Thanks again to Tim Kunes for coming on the podcast this week. And with that, let's bring in the E crew now. Jeff, Anthony, new week, new team, the Wolves, another top 10. I guess we'll start with the line that we ended last week's podcast with, because Andrew Trimble asked me to bring it up again. Anthony, if we can refrain from no 87s in the Wolves top 10.
Okay, and I guess my challenge to the New England Wolves: get a working broadcast this season.
Oh.
Zing,
Zing. Oh man. I mean,
He
he
did go
sent me
back-to-back weeks with Anthony's two favorite opponents, I would say. The Protect Junior Ducks, the rival in New Jersey, and then everyone that's been following along on the E Show, Andrew Trimble and Anthony Apollo had a little bit of good back and forth. Andrew Trimble, the owner of the New England Wolves, but they buried the hatchet. They hugged it out at Frozen Finals. We took some pictures. There may have been some bunny ears in a couple of pictures. Then we had some nice pictures. It's a good back and forth.
I did love the picture. That's for sure. Co-owners too. Andrew and Tim, co-owners.
That's right.
Just like the 87.
I forgot Timmy's co-owner
with Matt and Adam. So, just like the Avalanche, Andrew sent me his version of the top 10. So we'll kind of wait to compare at the end, like we did with the Avalanche.
That's fine. I like that.
And he also sent me a number of stories to tell. So as we kind of make our list, there's a few stories for a few different players. If you follow
coaches are catching on to the story time.
I think people just like story time. That's for sure.
Story time's great. Story time sells, baby.
So let's jump into the top 10. I actually put two names on here right away, just because of the impact that they had with the organizations.
And they happen to be related.
Yes, and those are the Marcinkevich brothers.
Yeah.
Dominic's obviously played more of an actual full season for the Wolves. What year was that? All the
18,
years,
19.
Yeah, all the years
when he was rookie
together.
of the year.
Yes, he was rookie of the year in 18-19.
Yep.
It felt like when he wanted to, when he said, I'm going to score, he'll just score, right? Like every single time. And I think that was one of the first JBT nights that I went up to up there in Laconia. And that was when they faced the Chiefs in like a wild, 6-5 comeback win. And Dominic scored the game winner in that game. Right. So he also was on our all-star team that year when we faced Plymouth State and UMass Boston. And I actually remember watching the Plymouth State game with Mark Kumpel, that was Mark's last year with the league as our director of hockey operations. And Dominic's got just run over by this behemoth from Plymouth State, like a 23-year-old 6'4" defenseman, right? And Mark actually
Dominic's 5'9", 161.
Yeah, not the biggest kid. Mark actually reached over and grabbed me and was like, "Is he gonna get up?" And he got up immediately and then scored the next shift to give us the lead. And I was like, this kid is as tough as hell.
Yeah, he's a hockey player. He is definitely a hockey player. Game changer with the puck on his stick.
Yeah, and then his brother wasn't a full season, but what he did in a very short amount of time deserves to be recognized, right? So he came in at the end of this past season. Or sorry, not this past season. 2 seasons ago. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
COVID season.
Yeah, the COVID season. I'm still thinking this past season ended 2 weeks ago when it really ended 3 months ago at this point. But
Neil, didn't he have 4 goals in his first game? I remember we
had
recorded the next day and we're doing fantasy, and I was like, Patrick Marcinkevich just scored 4 goals in a game in his debut. So
he played 6 games down the stretch, right? Had 16 points, including a 4-goal game. Which were all 4 goals against the Avalanche, I want to say.
Neil, I think you're also burying the lead here. You said 16 points in 6 games. How about 11 goals in 6 games? Nearly 2 goals per game.
I gotta go find that box score now that Jeff brings it up. I should have had the box score ready, but
also quick question. So would this be the fewest amount of games played that we've included in any top 10 lists this offseason?
Oh, for sure.
Right, Anthony.
For
Absolutely.
sure. But the immediate impact, and remember that year, that was the 2020-21 season, right?
Yep.
I got all my years confused. But that year the North was legit, right? That was the year that the Avalanche got the at-large and ended up in the championship game against the Rangers. Vermont played 9 games before Christmas and then made it to the Frozen Finals. The Wolves were legit. Seacoast knocked off the Avs. Like the 4 teams in the North were legit. And they only played each other.
Team, I was saying that Lumberjacks team, that was the Descanio Buffaline team that we all wanted to see go to the Frozen Finals.
I got to find that box score now. I mean, this is just three of those 11 goals were game winners, right?
And 6 points on the power play. 3 goals, 3 assists.
No, sorry, Jeff. The game you're thinking of is first game. It was a 5-goal game.
Please, excuse me. 5 out of the 6 goals and a 6-3 win scored by Patrick Marcinkiewicz.
Yes.
2 of those coming on the power play, 1 game winner. That's like 3,000 fantasy points.
I'm thinking about this right here. February 20th was JBT night. That was my first shootout appearance. So my first runner-up award, if you will, I guess. Not really an
first
award.
First appearance for Lean Jeans.
Yeah. Oh my God. Here we go.
God, it's bad.
But he was a part of all 4 goals in the comeback win over the Avs that night, right? I mean, his immediate impact is just insane.
In 6 games.
It's just insane what he did in that very, very short stint with the team. But overall, the presence of the Marcinkiewicz brothers with the organization throughout their time in junior hockey gets them on this list. They have to be on this list.
Neil. 2 other quick things about Patrick Marcinkiewicz. 1, where is he going to play college hockey?
Hold on. I gotta find the text. You can
Story
say
time.
Oh man,
Long Island University Sharks, not Dolphins, Sharks. So I'll be guessing. I'll be getting to see him on opening night at Matthews Arena. They are opening up with the Northeastern Huskies.
I gotta find Trimble's text, Jeff. Oh my God.
Oh no.
I gotta find it.
That's gonna be. I always find it so weird seeing these guys in the junior leagues and then seeing them in college. It makes me feel wicked old, but that'll be the case on. I think it's October 1st.
Patrick should make the list too. It's not every day that a player comes from our league and commits to the Long Island Dolphins.
Oh God! I got in his head. Is he joking or did
he's totally joking, right?
Oh, okay.
He's totally joking. But it was
he listens to every episode.
Yes, exactly. That's why he said it, right? So
and the other thing about Patrick's EP page, watch out, Dana Margaret Hickling. Photo credit, Brittany Hart. The Brittany Hart. Did you see that? Check it out.
Did not see that until just now.
Bam. The Queen, Brittany Hart. Love it.
So we start there. Where do you guys want to go next? Because that's two forwards so far. It's a good start, that's for sure.
I mean, DJ Schwenke being a 150-point man, Mr. New England Wolf, another 3-year guy, might be a good place to go. Just saying.
And so DJ was the captain for our all-star team in 17-18.
I forgot how good
or
he
18-19. I need a refresher on years.
It's called age, Neil. You're getting old, bud. You're in the 30s now. Welcome.
Let's see here.
Yeah, he was 2017, 2020.
Yeah, so he was the captain in the 1920 year, which was the year that we actually beat Salem State. It was the year we tied Pittsburgh, then beat Salem, and then lost to UMass Boston. So he was the captain of the all-star team for us that year. But 3 years with the Wolves, I mean, yeah, the points are just ridiculous. 150 points. And for those that
scored around 50 points, but that last year he almost doubled his goals. He went from 18 to 19 to 30 in his last season.
And obviously, when you look at our website, we only post NCAA commitments, but we don't deter kids away that want to go play club. For anyone that doesn't know, Liberty University club team is
wagon.
Like a wagon. Like they play a lot of exhibitions against NCAA programs, even Division I NCAA programs. So it says club, but I almost put Liberty in a different class of their own, right? It's
call them a D1 AA kind of
you know what I mean? It's just that legit. So a perfect spot for him too. But hey, if this is their line, imagine rolling out with the Marcinkiewicz brothers and Schwenke in the middle.
I would want to be playing goalie. I know that.
Or you could just move Dominic's to center, move Patrick's into center, whatever. Like that is a legit 1, 2, 3 for the first 3 forwards we have here. Who next?
Guess you could go with the defenseman next, right behind or in third place in points is Declan House.
Yes, and that gets me to a story from Andrew. Let me find this
Does it
text.
involve Trent House? Father House Trent, who was a big fan of us on Twitter. And
So Andrew sent me a picture this past week of what did he say here? Trivia question for the podcast. Which future Wolves player was the cover model on Coach Trimble's off-ice hockey DVD? And then he sends me this. It's a little bright. Hold on. Sends me this picture of someone shooting, right?
mm-hmm.
How would I ever know who that is?
Hockey.
How would I ever know who that is?
Little
Right?
child.
So I was like, I have no idea. It is the Declan House. I met Declan House doing 6 a.m. Wednesday morning private lessons at Union Sports Arena in New Jersey when he was 10. First off, pause. Union Sports Arena is where we're adding a new EHL P team this year in the Union Junior Thunder.
Oh,
Continue though with Andrew's story. Anthony, I'm sorry. This is all in good fun. He says, little known fact, I think I saw Anthony was hiding in a trash can trying to get him to sign an 87's contract at the same time.
damn. Shots fired.
Well,
Anthony, your response.
No, but Declan would have looked pretty good in the 87's uniform.
Didn't Anthony write a very nice article on Declan House this year? I thought.
I know we talked about when he got his 100th
yeah.
point, and Anthony mentioned it in one of his stories. So,
That's
but he's a New Jersey kid, so
I was gonna say
could have looked pretty good.
Hockey hotbed, New Jersey.
Could have looked pretty good in the 87's uniform.
Also, just to
great
respond
hockey
to
players, great hockey broadcasters.
just to respond to Andrew Trimble with that part of the story that is false. I don't hang out in the trash cans at Union Arena. I hang out in the trash cans at the Hackensack Ice House. Thank you very much. Because that arena is only like 10 minutes away from my house.
Perfect.
See,
Perfect.
please get it right.
So as we did with the Avalanche, and I'll do now. We're 4 for 4 so far, which is really surprising that we could at least get that part right. I mean, if we couldn't get that part right, we probably shouldn't have a podcast. But
we should probably all go apply for the Rhodes Scholarship now. I think I'm coming. Let's go. Harvard, here we come.
Oh man. So where did I just go here for a second? There are a few names on this list, Jeff, that's kind of similar to when we had the Express.
The Wayback Machine.
Yes. Remember when we did the Express episode, there were names that technically didn't play EHL.
I feel like guys like Jack Musil and 13-15.
What's funny is the year the EHL started was 13-14. That season, the Wolves were still an independent junior team. They came in the following year. So technically, Jack Musil didn't play in the EHL, but he has to be mentioned because he went on to play at Maine. So I have to just mention.
Oh boy.
I just have to mention the University of Maine. That's all. That's why I have to mention that. I mean, also the fact that in 51 games, he put up 101 points. That's a pretty damn good year. So he's not on the top 10, but we have to just at least mention him here.
Mm-hmm.
Ricards?
Oh, Richard Jelensky's. Dude, love that kid. Speaking of story time, it was the first showcase this year, and he came and played a game with me and Lauren Smith. And he was just smiling, sitting below. We were asking all the Wolves, they're like, hey, you guys want to come do some social media stuff for us? And they were all pretty shy. And anyone that knows Ricards, he's a very funny guy, soft-spoken, doesn't speak English incredibly well, and he actually admitted that to us. He's another Riga Latvia native, like the Markinkevich brothers. And he's like, hey, I'll do it. I don't speak English very well, but, and he's just sitting there with a smile, and then so then he came out and did it, and I think it was This or That was the game that we played. I'm pretty sure it's still out on the EHL Twitter waves. You can go see it, but he did a great job. Everyone else was shy, and who knows? The kid from Riga Latvia is the one that's like, I play. Let's do it.
And just like the Marcinkevich brothers from Latvia, right? Like there's a great connection.
Speaking of hotbeds, not just New Jersey, Riga Latvia too.
Yeah, but there's a great like kind of pipeline for the Wolves that they've gotten from Latvia. I mean, and Ricards is an EHLP alum. I often just forget that first season for him, 1920, he put up 87 combined points in the EHLP. Right, and then 2 seasons in the EHL, you combine playoffs and post or regular season. There's 94 points right there. So one thing I often hear about is from coaches is they often say like the difference between EHLP production and EHL production is like for every 1 point you get in the EHLP, they feel like it's a half a point in the EHL, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to put up 100 points in the EHLP and then put up 100 the same points in the EHL. It's kind of what they say, right? But for Ricards, he's above that number, right? Like he was so smooth, and I feel like the majority of times he scored, it was a highlight.
Yes,
like it was like whatever he did was sick.
He was interesting too because he was kind of like David Krejci, the way he was like a slow, like deliberate kind of European skater. Never looked like very fast, but get the puck on his stick and he will find the smallest, tightest top corner, which he did a bunch of times. Was that what you were going to say, Neil?
Yeah, and there was a shootout goal that he had at the Newington Showcase. Honestly, the Wolves can be labeled as probably one of the deadliest shootout teams from this past season. Remember that they had a shootout game against the Apple Corps, I want to say, in Haverhill, and they marched Declan House out like 3 or 4 times in a row.
Oh, that's going up against Colin Callanan, Nick Weber.
Yeah.
Apple Corps, a lot of guys that could put a lot of pucks in the net too.
So, but hey, that first 5 with the Marcinkevich brothers, Swanky, House, and Jelenski's is damn good.
That's pretty nasty.
Where do you want to go next? Last year's defenseman of the year, Julius
Tavandel.
Yep. I mean, he has to be on this list, right?
Can't go wrong with Julius. Orange Julius.
Like just so steady, right? And I always talked about the players that played for our all-star team in the college series that, committed very shortly afterwards. Then there's the players that played for our all-star team in the college series who committed to the schools that we played against, right? So Cavando heading off to Curry, made an impact in that game that they saw that they said, we want that kid on this side of the ice instead. So pretty cool. I mean, a kid that developed like crazy throughout his time in the EHL. And honestly, I guess the only negative that the Wolves have is that because of COVID, he couldn't come back for that 2020-21 season. Right.
Yeah,
so
the borders were shut down.
He was here in 1920, couldn't get back into the country in 2020-21, and then obviously won the Defenseman of the Year award this past year, 21-22. You just wonder what another year would have been, right? Because he finished with 58 points. You can make the case that one more year, maybe he's a 100-point guy.
Yeah, he was an excellent leader. And another European product. Like you said, Andrew and Tim do a really good job of going overseas and finding all this. This whole team is like all Europe team. Julius is from Stavanger, Norway.
Yeah, I think the only two that aren't from. We have more Europeans than Americans so far. Yeah. Wow. But it was great talking to Tim though about Julius and the overtime winner that they had against the Avs at the Frozen Finals. just because of like that moment, right? Like that was their first ever Frozen Finals game for their EHL team, right? They had made it before with their EHLP team, and you go up against the Avs who've won 2 championships, and in that one moment, in that one goal, you actually end the Avalanche season, right? And I asked Chris this, I asked Tim this, like whenever the Avs and Wolves get together, you can't script it. Like every game is like its own different story, and that was probably one of the best games in Providence.
Yeah, they can always be drastic too. They can be either high scoring, low scoring, each side. Yeah, it's always interesting, and that's what you love about these division battles. They know each other. They see each other a lot. In 2020, they saw nothing but each other.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning too that the Wolves really had a Cinderella run this past season because they ended up knocking off the Boston Junior Rangers in the wild card game.
I had the pleasure of calling that. I got like, that was probably one of the more fun games I've called this year. Sorry,
Kevin Johnson with the overtime winner.
Yep. Oh man, just back and forth. That was a low scoring, friggin' grind it. Nobody wanted to make a mistake. Rangers trying to get back to defend their cup. Wolves, like you said, trying to get there for the first time. You could feel the tension at Breakaway Ice Center for well over multiple periods.
And it's a great point that Anthony brings up because I remember now a text that Andrew sent me right after that wild card game. And he mentioned how the Wolves were the only Frozen Finals team that had to play all teams from the previous year's Frozen Finals to get to the finals, right? Remember, they played the Lumberjacks in the first round. They played the Avalanche in the second round. They played the defending champion Rangers in the wild card game. And then talking to Tim about that wild card game was great because right before Johnston scores that game winner, I don't remember who it was now, but they had a breakaway.
No, not just a breakaway. It was a 3-on-0.
Yes. Oh, it was a 3-on-0. That's right. He didn't pay. Whoever it was didn't pass
to Johnston.
He didn't pass to Johnston, and the puck actually stayed in the zone.
I think was it Larissy? Was it Alex Larissy?
I thought maybe it was Bobby Bernier.
Maybe it was Bernier.
I think honestly, I remember the moment being like, maybe they were just so shocked that they had a 3-on-0 that they didn't know what to do. Right? I know, like when you're so wide open that you almost like freeze.
Yeah,
like maybe
that's they say in basketball, layup, easiest basket to make, easiest basket to miss. You're just like, what? What? And Chris Jackson made an unbelievable save.
Yes, he makes the save, puck cycled around, passed across Johnston, roosts it. He scored both goals that game. I mean, honestly, if you want to talk about best games of the year too, that was probably one of the best games of the year when you combine everything together. So, but that's 6 so far. As we mentioned, 4 Europeans and 2 Americans. But there's plenty of other directions to go. Where do you guys want to go next?
I know that's
because there's 2 names that just jump right out to me that have to be on this list.
Could go another D. Kevin Byte was phenomenal. Was he one of the ones on your list?
Okay, there's 3 names on the list. Kevin Byte for sure. One of my favorite Tim Kunes quotes, answers. Not this offseason, obviously, but this past offseason, when I had the Wolves Team of the Week feature, I asked him about what it would be like, to not have Kevin Byte. And at that moment, he had said, I've been the head coach of the EHL team for 3 years. Kevin Byte's been here for every year. I've never not put his name in the lineup. I don't know what that's going to be like to not have him in the lineup. But he was just so steady, right? Yep. Like did everything right for the Wolves, and truly just is a epitome of a player who got better as he progressed throughout his time in the league, and now is at Johnston Wales down in Providence.
And another guy from Riga, Latvia.
Yes,
number 5 of our European. New England Europeans. Here we go.
All right, so should I just mention the other 2 that I had in my head, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. Donnie Feldman. My boy from fantasy.
Jeff. I mean, I don't know how we've made it.
I'm sorry.
We've made it through 7 guys so far. And the year that Jeff won fantasy, he should have dedicated his fantasy win
to Donnie Feldman.
He
was dirty.
Because he was the backbone for you.
Dirty Donnie.
he came in at the end of the 1920 season, kind of similar to the way Patrick's Marcinkiewicz came in at the end of the 2020-21 season. Put up 6 points in 6 games. They actually played a playoff game that year. That was a loss to the Wizards, and then the season got canceled. I remember, if I remember correctly. And then came back, was the captain for the Wolves in the 2020-21 season. A lot of those 41 points you see went to Jeff's fantasy team. And then I think it's cool that Arcadia, who played out their inaugural season at Division III this past year, obviously a very young team with a lot of freshmen on that team, but to quickly recognize Donnie for his leadership and make him an assistant captain in that very first year shows you just the type of leader that he is. So I'm assuming at some point he'll wear the C for Arcadia.
That's a good guess.
He had 8 points this past season down there for the Knights. And that gives us, as I mentioned, 8 so far. I didn't actually type his name on the list. And then the second one that I had pulled up, we go deeper in the past history, and that's Blake Harlow. And I think he, again, another captain, by the way.
Another trend that follows here.
I think that he was honestly underrated for how good he was for the Wolves at that time. 30 goals, like 30 goals.
3-0.
Hold on. I have a story. Did I tell this story last week?
We'll find out. About Blake Harlow?
By the way, when Blake Harlow makes the Wolves top 10, can you do me a favor? Me.
When he makes.
Of course. You can mention either of two important stats. We'll read the first one. I beat him in one-on-one bench press competition and embarrassed him in front of all of his teammates.
Oh boy.
And then he actually sent me Blake's number, which, Blake, I apologize, I haven't texted you yet, because Andrew wants me to find out what the excuse was, whether it was he had sun in his eyes or COVID at the time.
Oh my God. Wow.
I mean, Andrew has just provided all the fuel for this podcast. So we appreciate him for that. But Blake was so good during his time in the EHL and the EHLP too. That first season for him in the EHLP put up 34 points in that 16-17 season, translated into 46 with the EHL, then just played out 4 years at UMass Dartmouth, which I think we've mentioned about a few schools so far. You could do your own
all EHL teams.
All EHL. I mean, let's count UMass Dartmouth from this past year. This is gonna really test my memory here, Jeff.
I'd say we did this last week with Elvira, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. God, Elite Prospects kills me.
Kevin Berger, right?
Weinbrenner.
Wasn't Kevin Berger
no,
too?
yes.
Yeah, he was a
9,
Warrior.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I mean,
Jeez,
that is
16?
loaded. And then, honestly, you know what we have to do now is go here to our page from this past season. Marshall McAlpin is going there. Pat Alto's going. Kevin Johnston's going. James Metler, Matt Zadanowicz, Vinny Nicosia, Alex Newton, Brandon.
Those are 87s. Easy does it.
I mean,
all riled up.
8 more guys are going off to UMass Dartmouth in the league this year. So
to add to the 16 that are still, those guys.
Oh no, that's some of them are
right?
graduating, right? I mean, Kevin Johnston is the Wolves guy going there. So honestly, during the season, I'm gonna have to reach out to Eric Nowak and just be like, all right, let's do a team of the week feature about UMass Dartmouth and just that pipeline, because you could do your own top 10 just from the guys that have gone on to UMass Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to add Blake's name to the list. So that gives us
That's
9
9?
so far.
Ooh.
You know what I have to do, actually, because we started ripping through this thing so fast? I have to compare it to Trimble's list.
I like that we've got 9 deep. And well, actually, last check was at 4. We're at 4 for 4. Let's see if the last 5 picks since then have been good or bad, or I'd say we're on the money.
Ooh.
Oh, we get a couple.
Yeah, a couple misses. Well,
Oh,
I don't know. Do we call them misses? Or do we just
we call it
we went in different directions?
right. His to each their own.
Yeah.
It's
So
the star list.
for the 10th spot, at the end of the interview with Tim, he did talk. I kind of asked him to touch on some players that may not make the list but deserve to be discussed.
Our honorable mentions.
I'm glad that he mentioned this name because he wasn't a big point guy, but
Oh yeah,
I would not go in the corner against Jack Ennis. Like I don't want to get hit. he would bury kids. He was one of the toughest kids in our league and like a true leader for the Wolves. He was there for 3 seasons. Literally almost played every single game this past year. Look at that. Missed 1 regular season game. Like a true warrior for the Wolves.
and I remember Coach Kunes talking to me about Jack Ennis at the Frozen Finals too, saying how he was just like you just said, he's nails. He will go in the corner, he will do whatever you want, and you need some of those nails type guys in the back end. And he was a big part of the reason that the Wolves got to Providence College to the Frozen Finals.
Yep.
Not a pretty. You look at his points and you say, yeah, but you can't. He's one of those guys you can't look at points. You got to look at the game tape to judge him accordingly. Did I see Robert Hake?
Yeah, Anthony. Here we go. I'm gonna take a shot at myself now. So
Robert
episode 2, 3. We were really early in the podcast.
That was in its infancy.
We had Robert Hake like rake on, and he literally told me like 3 times before I hit record how to pronounce his name.
We're here with Rob Hack.
And I still pronounced it wrong. Like he literally said it, and then 10 seconds later, I still said it wrong. Like I don't even know what I was like thinking at that time, right?
You got the old broadcaster yips, I think it was.
Oh my god!
Like I said, when I was at Northeastern this year, and the LIU Sharks, not Dolphins, came in, and I had to announce starting lineups. And now for the visiting starting lineups, first the visitors from Long Island University, the Sholfins.
Like, could you imagine if you had said?
I'm gonna call them the Sholfins this year.
Yes.
Oh my god!
Hake, like rake, was actually the first commitment of the year in the entire league in 1920. I remember because we always did a new graphic each year. So Justin's first graphic that year was Hake going to Morrisville State. So where he's at now, heading into his junior year, a player that Trimble had mentioned was Nick Marin, which I think maybe why we missed it was the first year with Jack Musil was that independent junior year. But his second year technically was the first year for the Wolves in the EHL.
In 2014-15.
2014-15. So he's technically played in EHL and then went to play Division 1 at UMass Lowell. Ended up transferring to play club at Georgetown on his way out. Probably got a decent education there.
I'd say so.
My brother went there. My brother's pretty smart.
No offense to the Riverhawks, UMass.
No, Georgetown's
but Georgetown, the Hoyas, yeah, they're pretty.
So Trimble has Nick Marin on his list. I'll highlight another player that Trimble has on his list. That I think he posts stuff about this guy a lot. Adam Barnes, who played. He played 17. He played 17-18 for the Wolves, and now is actually playing professionally over in England. I mean,
the Leeds Knights.
I don't know too much about the league.
Whoa, those are points.
Wow. Look at the points.
72 points in 47 games.
Yeah.
Immediate impact. Blackburn Hawks, 22 points in 15. Wow.
So he's from England, right? So he came over here for a year of juniors and then went back home to play pro.
Good for him.
So
I remember him for some reason. 17, 18.
again, Jeff, the years just blend together for all of us, right?
Especially when we've been around since its infancy. Speaking of,
we haven't mentioned a goalie yet.
did he have a goalie on there?
He had
Bogart.
He had Eric Bogart on his list, who played 2 seasons for the Wolves. Again, 1 independent, 1 EHL.
And then this college, another all EHL team. I know, like
SUNY Fredonia
going there this year.
Oh my god, 3 or 4 times that by.
Oh, actually, you know what? Sorry, 3 or 4 junior Rangers alone. So that was announced in the year. Schlifke, crap, I'm blanking on the other ones, but
there's
Gagnon?
a bunch.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, remember how good LJ Newell was throughout his time with the Wolves as well. 2 seasons there, from Colorado, now at Rivier University, another team that just finished their first year in Division III. Kurt Gutting, I actually remember.
I remember Gutting.
That was way back in the 14, 15, and 15, 16 seasons. And it was
that
actually
with the Port Huron Prowlers.
Yeah, in the Fed League, right? And this year, 18-19 at Southern New Hampshire. I do like this part about EP. The ads kill me. But 18-19, Kurt Gutting's accolades at SNU. NE10 All Championship Team, NE10 Champion because SNU won the title that year, NE10 Championship MVP, First Team All Conference, Goalie of the Year.
That is called a supermarket sweep of trophies. Thank you. I will take them all and go home.
So, let's see.
Walsh must have loved him.
So I've mentioned everyone that Trimble had. A number of honorable mentions that we talked about, and I talked about with Tim as well. And then we go back to our list, and we have 9 still. So where do we go with the 10th person?
I mean, who do we think
So
Andrew would want on here the most?
It's not a matter of who they want, right? It's a matter of who we want, right? I mean,
they are who we thought they were. We let them off the hook.
A player that I have to mention a few more players. I'm sorry. How about Ryan Dunn? Remember, he was very early years with the Wolves. 25 goals for him before he moved on to SUNY Fredonia, Jeff. Tommy Condon had some of the best hair in the EHL.
Oh, look at that.
Remember that flow?
Lettuce.
He could fly. He could absolutely fly. I remember that.
Matamonte, another guy I remember
Matamonte, who was with the Avalanche, and then during the season moved up to the Wolves and was just a perfect fit up there. I forget what line he played on, but I remember there was the Feldman line with Sergei Anisimov.
Oh, Anisimov. Yeah, I saw his name.
I mentioned how hard Jack Ennis used to lay the body. How about Anisimov?
Mm-hmm.
Let me find his size.
AJ Lackus from this past year's team. Another good one.
Yep.
Who actually, oh my God, we didn't mention this name. Don't remember him from 17-18. Andre Papalardo.
I was going to say that. Papalardo Goldbranson.
Say that name going down the wing. Andre Papalardo Goldbranson up, and he's already off the ice, and the puck's in the net.
That's another entry for the
all name team.
Yeah, for the all name team.
Another episode for us.
Zakula de Hodgman versus Andre Papalardo Goldbranson.
Oh, Chris Peters played for the Wolves for a bit.
Yes, I forgot we talked about that with the episode with the Express. Is Peters a 2 top 10 player?
Right. And we mentioned with him, Josh Grunn was an original Wolf too.
There are so many different options. This player was just 1 season with the Wolves. Ethan Homitz probably scored one of the best goals I've ever seen in EHL history. We were at a showcase in Hooksett, not at the Ice Den, at Tri-Town. The Monarchs were hosting it. And he went end to end and almost did the Bobby Orr when he got tripped while scoring, midair scoring. And it ended the Little Flyers winning streak at 30 whatever games that record is. So where do we want to go?
This is tough.
I'm thinking Adam Barnes.
Adam Barnes, okay.
And then that tells us that now I'm going even further back with our episodes. We need to do some research about that Australian league. When we talked about Declan Bronte for a while with the Chiefs, and I need to do some research about this league in England as well, because the numbers, just to pull them back up for what Barnes is putting up,
72 in 47 games or something like that.
Like, it's just silly.
Almost a 2-point per game player.
28 goals, 44 assists. So does it show a breakdown by league here? I don't think it does for the one that we're looking for. But 72 this past year, 50 the year before. And when he was in the EHL, he had 37. So I'm good with this list.
10th. Yeah, solid 10th edition. English lad from England.
I think like every one of these top 10s that we put together, we're always going to have an extra player or two that could be on for somebody else, right? Like, so maybe Nick Marin goes on in place of like a Kevin Bight, but you can't go wrong with either one. You know what I mean? So I'm good with this list. You guys good with this list?
I am good with it as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting where we've had some teams like the Boston Junior Rangers and New Hampshire Avalanche where they're original EHL teams, but they don't have too many high point scorers. Meanwhile, for the New England Wolves, you have a defenseman who eclipsed 100 points.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And I think it definitely speaks to how the New England Wolves play as a team, especially where they like to get players from overseas in Latvia, in Norway, in England. And they certainly like to play an up-tempo and skill game where they can rack up points.
And it was right here that I have highlighted 17-18 when Andrew and Tim took over. And it's honestly just been a step forward every year for them. And I think that the best proof, obviously, is this past year getting their first Frozen Finals appearance. But just look at the win totals for the EHL team also. 17, and then 25 in 19.
Wait, how many wins did they have in 17-18?
17 for back-to-back years.
I looked at the games remaining column, and I was like, whoa, they had 0 wins in their first year.
No.
They're 17, 31, and 2.
That's a weird record.
Okay.
17 wins in that 17-18 season, 17 wins in that 18-19 season, 25 in that 19-20 season, 20 in the 2020-21 season. But remember, we played fewer games. We only played 36 games, right? So if they had 10 more games, would they have won 5 of them to match the year before? Probably.
8-2-0 in their final 10. They
great
really
down
hustled.
the stretch, and then 23 this past year. And just, I know I talked about it with Tim, but to mention again, what they did down the stretch. Anthony just mentioned this for the 2020-21. The month of February, they were tremendous.
Wow.
They were absolutely tremendous. Remember, it was all led by Liam Kilgallon down the stretch. I mean, they won every game from February 5th to the 22nd. And then you kind of have to just take those 2 last games against the Rangers out because everyone's seeds were done by that point.
Also, hang on, because Liam Kilgallon was great in that stretch. I don't know if we mentioned him or not. Eddie's Grigoriev's.
Oh, Eddie's.
He was a real shot in the arm for the Wolves offense. He was really good down the stretch.
Actually, I see he's coming back this year. Named captain.
Wackus is coming back. Eddie's is coming back. And I mentioned
captain, or did I dream that?
I don't know if they name a captain yet.
But
I also mentioned it in talking to Tim. Trevor Jewell is coming back too, right? And it was really interesting how everything played out at the finals, that on that Friday,
he had a shot
when it was Wolves versus Express and Railers versus 87s, the 4 teams knew that they were all playing the next day. They just didn't know who they were playing, right? and Trevor Jewell got the chance to play in a game and then just pitched the shutout.
29 saves on 29
saves
on the biggest stage of the year.
Yeah, right. Like, remember that was like, those were like two like very different games. I remember the Wolves Express and then the 87s Railers, and then obviously we had the semifinals the next day. And for Tim to end the semifinals with a loss, I'm sure was disappointing. But knowing the Wolves, knowing Tim, knowing Andrew, that was just the next step up. And from here, it's just another step forward. And honestly, at some point in the near future, we're going to be handing them a trophy. Like there's no doubt about it. So just
notice that theme too, though, quickly, Neil, about each week we've talked about this. Every team that we're doing in the EHL has gotten better each year. The progressions, like you just said.
Yeah. And I said this to Tim, and I'll say it to you guys here too. It feels like every year we talk about the teams that you don't want to face in the playoffs, the Wizards and the Wolves, because they're the two teams that just get that much better as the year progresses. So to recap the top 10, we started off with the Marcinkiewicz brothers, Dominic's and Patrick's, DJ Swanky, Declan House, Ricard Jelensky's. There's your first 5. Julius Cavandel, Kevin Bite, Donnie Feldman, Blake Harlow, and Adam Barnes. It's a tremendous top 10. I didn't even get a chance to talk about all the stuff that they do for the community. The JBT night that I participate in the shootout in every year is a fantastic event. I have back-to-back runner-up awards to my credit, I guess, so I have to win that this year. I cannot be runner-up again.
You're working on those moves, Commissioner.
I gotta be, right? But they have done such a great job since the two of them have taken over as the co-owners, right, and co-coaches. I know Andrew's now more of the full-time GM and coaching at the youth level. But the Wolves just keep getting better and better with each and every year. So there's your top 10. Cross off another team on the list, and we'll keep this thing rolling next week, guys.
See you then, boys.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.